Welcome to the Undisputed podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Taft. This podcast is the full show from today's episode of Undisputed from start to finish. They've got a busy slate, so skip Shannon. Let's get to it.
Good morning. Welcome to Undisputed. I'm Jenny Taft with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe. Hope you guys had a great weekend. How are we doing today?
Jenny, I am doing fine. We learned more and more watching The Last Dance last night. I want to see Skip Bayless how he finagles his way out of this one.
Oh, really? Well, I would like to offer my condolences to my partner, Shannon Sharpe. R.I.P. your LeBron GOAT debate. It's over.
Skip, stop. It is not over. It is not over. You're right, it's not, because LeBron going to play till he like another 3-4 years and be on the top of his game. So you're right, it's not over. Create more distance, though.
It's not over. It is not over, and I don't know about you guys. I just do not want The Last Dance to ever end. So much good stuff. And the latest episodes that we watched last night really showcased just how competitive and tough of a leader Michael Jordan really was. It also recapped the story of MJ and Steve Kerr getting into a physical altercation, throwing punches during a practice. Just hearing them two talk about it was really interesting. Shannon, in your opinion, was Michael Jordan a bully or a leader?
You know what? I wrote down some things last night, Skip, and I think it's twofold. I think two things can be true, and you've heard me say that so many times. Skip, I believe Mike was a leader, obviously being the best player on the team. That normally gives you that. But I think people look at him and saw how hard he worked. Basketball was the most important thing to him. It was the only thing that really mattered to him. But he was also a bully. Skip, when I look back at it, I don't believe Michael Jordan fought Steve Kerr or some of these other guys that he got into it with to make sure or to see if they can make shots in the fourth quarter. I believe he did what he did to see if they were tough enough, he could count on them to be around in the fourth quarter. Because, Skip, for the most part, he was going to have the ball in his hand, and he was going to do what was necessary in order for them to win the ball game. He was kind of controlling the chess pieces on the board. So he wanted to make sure, you know what? I believe, and like Steve Kerr said, and it changed, Skip, he did a lot of things to see how much respect he could garner. And I'm not so sure to this day he has a whole lot of respect for Scotty Burrell. Now, he'll say, oh, Scotty's a great guy. But you hear him say it in the documentary, Skip, he gained a newfound level of respect for Steve Kerr. Not that Steve Kerr beat him or anything, but he was the smallest man on the court, and he stood up for himself. Mike says, I can count on him now. Will Purdue, I can count on him now. He did a lot of things to see, Skip, whether or not he was going to be able to trust these guys in the fourth quarter. Not necessarily if they were going to be able to make a shot, but can I trust you? John did a lot of the same things, Skip, but he wasn't a yeller. He wasn't a cursor, and he definitely wasn't getting into a physical confrontation. But basketball stars and football stars, Skip, you and I both know entirely different. The quarterback, Pat Mahomes, is not going to challenge anybody to a fist fight. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Elway, Marino, they were not going to challenge guys to a fist fight. But Jordan could. But for me, Skip, for us to sit here and say that's the only style, and you see, Skip, at the end, this was the most emotional that we saw Mike, because Mike has been reading the articles. And a lot of the articles, 60, 70% of them, said Michael Jordan was a bully. And Mike has been reading that. And he said something very interesting, Skip. He said, you might want to say I was a tyrant. Okay, fine, that's whatever. But these guys, they won, and it got us to what we wanted to be. But if you don't like that style, don't use that style. He's saying, look, this is the way I did it. Not saying it's right or wrong, but we won. Skip, we got to be very, very careful doing this, because a lot of times when we have success doing things a certain way, we automatically assume that's the only way, and then the ends justify the means. But we won. You got to be careful, because if we're in the workplace and I work with a team and our job is sales, and my boss and the strongest guy in the group, and all he does is berate me, but my sales are up, he can say, but look at you. You're top in sales. You would have never done that without it. Nah, bro. Nah. So just be careful with that, Skip. The end doesn't necessarily justify the means, but They did win. It'll be very interesting. There are a lot of guys that say, yeah, it worked, and I respect Mike, but I believe there are a lot of other guys that it didn't work on, and then I'm not so sure they have the same level of respect for Mike as some of the other guys. But in this situation, it did work. Well, it started working in 91. Was he not that type of leader in 84, 85, 86 through 90? What transpired, Skip? What happened? Why didn't they win like 14 titles?
Is it my turn?
It's your turn,
okay.
Yeah.
Here I go. It obviously took him a while to take over the team. He obviously went through Doug Collins as a coach and then eased into the Phil Jackson regime. I still say that Doug Collins could have won just as many championships as Phil Jackson, because once Michael grew up and took over, he took over the head coaching duties also. Michael Jordan, as you saw last night, was simply the greatest leader/motivator ever there was. There's never been anything like that force of nature you saw last night. And Shannon, I warned you going into this. I was there in 1998. I was the columnist for the Chicago Tribune. I saw it from the inside out. I saw much of this in action, and I told you and warned you going in, it wasn't the prettiest. It could be heartless. He could be ruthless. He could be cold-blooded. He could be all those things that would add up to being a bully, except that there was always method to the madness. And when I say madness, I'm talking about angry, driven, rage-filled madness to win basketball championships. No one has ever wanted to win at any cost the way this guy did. So it wasn't just being a bully for bully's sake. It wasn't just bullying because you're a bad guy and you can get away with it. He always had a plan of attack on every one of his teammates. And he treated each teammate very differently. He did not try to bully Scottie Pippen because he knew right away Scottie's abilities were on par with Michael's. They weren't in Michael's league, but they were at least the second best set of skills on the team. But when he saw other players, such as we talked last week about Horace Grant, he saw a weakness in Horace, in which Horace wasn't as fiery and focused on a nightly basis as he needed to be, and he was going to attack the weakness and try to make it a strength for the playoffs. He attacked the weakness of Scott Burrell, and I saw it day after day. He was relentlessly ruthless to the point of being cold-blooded, cold-hearted on Scott Burrell.
Bullying.
And Scott Burrell took it. He took it and took it. And Michael went so far last night in the doc to say, I tried to get him to fight me in a good way, as in practice fight me, as in, okay, let's do it right here, right now. And Scott Burrell wasn't made of that kind of stuff. But he toughened him up enough that there was one key game in that 98 playoff run, and it was Game 3 at New Jersey. I was there at courtside that night, and that place was going berserk. They had played, New Jersey had the Bulls close twice in Chicago, and it was a hellacious barn burner of a game, that Game 3 at New Jersey. Michael went crazy and scored 38, but guess who scored 23 points in 24 minutes in that game? Scott Burrell. He could shoot it. And in a big playoff setting on the road, man, he looked pretty strong to me. He looked mentally tough to me because Michael had helped toughen him up. And I also told you on Friday that a leader like Michael could never show any weakness, even in practice, to his teammates. So in that one fateful practice where Steve Kerr admits he can snap, that he's got the kind of personality where he's patient, but when he snaps, he just goes over the edge. And he admitted that day in practice he snapped, and he punched Michael in the chest. And Michael had been complaining about his tactics to Phil, who had the whistle in his mouth and could call the fouls. And when Phil kept letting Steve Kerr get away with this and that and this and that, and he had been warned by Michael. Michael just popped him right in the eye. But to Michael's credit, he said he got in his car after he showered, and he started thinking, you know, I just beat up the littlest guy on the floor. I can't do that. So he called back to the Berto Center and got Steve Kerr's number, called him, talked it through with him, and Steve Kerr and the doc said, in a weird way, it was the greatest thing that ever happened because I stood up to Michael Jordan. And I won his respect, and Michael said in the documentary, he won my respect. So now Michael could trust Steve Kerr to be able to take and make huge shots in huge NBA Finals games because they were on the same wavelength, because there was mutual respect that Michael had forged in practice steel with exchanging punches. Yep, he exchanged punches with Will Perdue. Vanderbilt University's Will Perdue was 7 feet tall, and Will Perdue was strong. And he said, let's not get this wrong. He was an a-hole. He could be a jerk. He crossed the line numerous times, said Will Perdue in the documentary. But in the end, he was a hell of a teammate, because Will Perdue said when you stand back from it and you let the smoke clear, you realize that he had a purpose to all this. And you realize that they went 6-0 in the finals, and he won 6 MVPs. He never asked any of those guys to do anything he wasn't doing. And I love the one big money quote last night, Shannon, was that he said, my mentality was to go out and win at any cost. And if you don't want to live with that regimented mentality, then you don't need to be alongside me. He was basically saying it's my way or the highway. And he wanted you to get to the same level that he was. And if you don't get to the same level, he said, it's going to be hell for you. And it was hell for a lot of those guys, especially Scott Burrell. And the upside of it was, the upshot was, as Bill Winnington said, you know what? It worked. It did. It was incredibly effective to me in a very powerful way that I don't see Tom Brady lead that way. I never saw Magic lead that way. I definitely don't see LeBron lead that way. This was Michael's way. There's only one Michael Jeffrey Jordan, and he motivated by fear. And I love the Judd Buechler quote about fear. He said that the fear was palpable, that you could feel it on our practice floor, and you could feel it when he stepped on the floor from opponents. They feared Michael Jordan. He instilled it. He created it. He lived off motivating by fear and winning by fear, because he was the baddest man who ever walked onto a basketball court.
See, Skip, there's the thing. Magic won. But see, for you think this is the only way, and the ends justify the means. I got a couple of issues with points that you made. You said it took him a while to take over the team. After that very first practice, it was said in the documentary, Michael Jordan was the leader of that basketball team. So this notion that it took him till 1991 and he got there in 94, it took him all that time to take over, Skip Bayless. You know that was not the case. The moment he set foot in Chicago and they scrimmaged, Michael Jordan was the new de facto leader of that ball club. He said he wanted to try to get Scotty Burrell to fight him in a good way. What is there a good way to fight, Skip? That's me. Picking a fight with a guy on the basketball team to say, the football team that says, you know what? I'm trying to toughen him up. Skip, for real? And he said something, well, I'm trying to get you on my level. Well, that might explain why he can't pick players, because he's thinking he's getting the guys on their level and nobody's ever going to get to his level. So we got to stop this notion, Skip. See, what's happening with you is that we have a saying in our community, Skip, says, be careful of falling in love with someone's gift. Someone that can act, someone that can dance, someone that can sing, can play basketball. We look at that and they do that so well. We're all willing to overlook all the other flaws. Skip, he's a very flawed. This is bullying. But you say because they won 6, it's okay. No, it's not. That's my only thing. Skip, and a lot of play was said last week, Skip. I said when he did that to Horace Grant, I said, Skip, I'd have had to fight Mike. Skip, I would not have fought Mike because I think he's a bad person. I would not have fought Mike because I think his leadership style. I would have fought him to gain his respect. And if you notice, he had respect for people that stood up to him. And if you didn't, he was going to keep going and going and going. He's the type of guy, like you said, you give him an inch, he's going a mile. Well, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop it. You took that inch, as far as it goes, okay, and then we're going to be done with it. That's all I'm saying, Skip. Be careful. You do this a lot. With Tom Brady, you will find no fault. But with come LeBron, woo, be careful with falling in love with someone's gifts. Mike was a bully. They won. His leadership style is not for everybody. It would be very interesting to see if this style could work in today's game. It would be very interesting to see that. For me, I just believe that these guys rose to the occasion because they were they wanted to win too. They knew they were a part of something special. They were never going to get, I don't care how much he wrote them, Will Perdue and Paxson and Kerr and B.J. Armstrong was never going to get on Mike's level. But they were going to be willing to put the work in, off-season, the conditioning, and to make sure that come fourth quarter, if Mike ever needed them, they were going to be in position to make plays. But we got to stop this notion. Because Mike was 6-0, 6 for 6, 6 MVPs, 6 wins, that this is the right way. And the ends justify the means. Skip, I am not a believer in that notion. I believe that there are other ways that you can lead. And I understand that you can't lead everybody the same way. But this notion that him bullying, and that's what this was bullying, but this was his leadership style. Oh, it's good now we 6 for no. I will never ever agree with that because someone got bullied. And Skip, you understand how bullying works. It's someone that the 8th guy on the roster can't be the bully. It has to be someone in a leadership position. And that's what Mike was. And so for me, I have no qualms with the player. I have some issues with how he chose to go about and motivate the other players. You'll never hear me say anything about his game. Yeah, do I think LeBron's better? Yes, that's just me personally, Skip. Okay, fine. But I got no problem with the man's game. I got no problem with Michael Jordan. I have a problem with some of his leadership skills. And remember, Skip, Phil Jackson said in the piece, I had to tell Mike, camaraderie is a part of being a leader also. So you just can't whip without some type of reward. And the reward just can't come at the end of the season in titles. He did say that, right, Skip? You heard that, right?
You know,
okay.
I'm glad you brought up Phil Jackson because the more I watch, the more I think about what I saw from the inside out, the less I think of Phil Jackson's contribution to this. This was all Michael Jordan. Phil Jackson should drop to his knees every night and thank whatever God he worships up in Montana for Michael Jeffrey Jordan. He made Phil Jackson, and then Phil was able to segue right into Shaq and Kobe, who had a whole lot of Michael in him. Also driven, also got on teammates, also ridiculed teammates, also hard to live with. And Phil got to, quote-unquote, coach Jordan and Kobe / Shaquille O'Neal, simply the most powerful offensive force we've ever seen in the history of basketball. So that's what Phil got to do. And in the end, I look at, you know, what is your definition of bully? To me, a bully is a bad guy with a dark heart, with a bad heart. A bad guy who picks on people out of insecurity. He picks on people who are weaker to make him feel stronger because he's not sure about his own strength. Michael was supremely sure of his own strength, and he quote-unquote bullied, or as Steve Kerr called it last night, he bludgeoned you to make you stronger to be able to go with him in the postseason. Again, method to it. There was M.O. to it, modus operandi. He always had a plan, and he did not bully Dennis Rodman. He did not bully Scottie Pippen. But we saw what happened once Michael went to baseball, what happened to Scottie Pippen. I told you from the start, Pippen did not have anywhere near the killer will intangibles that Michael was able to bestow on him, to help teach him. And we saw Scottie Pippen in that flashpoint moment, Game 3, they were in danger of getting swept by the New York Knicks. And what did he do? Phil calls a last-second play for Tony Kukoc because he had made 6 last-second shots, walk-off shots already that season without Michael Jordan. And he calls the play for Tony, and Scottie said no, and he flat out, as Steve Kerr said, he quit on us. He went and sat down and told Jim Clemens, I'm not going in. Okay? Pete Myers, you get in, says Phil Jackson. Good for Phil. He inbounds to Kukoc, who then made the last shot and really took Pippen off a huge hook there, because even though the team was devastated by it after the game, and there were many tears cried in that locker room on all parts, they said Bill Cartwright gave a tearful speech about how Scottie quit on the team, and it cannot happen again. But the point was, that's Scottie Pippen. That's the essence of who he was and who he was not. He was Robin to Batman. And once Batman left, Robin wasn't sure how to handle himself. And in the flashpoint moment, he quit. Well, Michael's not going to quit, obviously, and Michael would not have let Scottie quit in that moment. Of course, the last shot would have been called in that sequence for Michael Jordan.
And that's what Scottie's problem was, Skip. But I'm trying to figure out, why the hell is this in Michael Jordan's documentary? This is Scottie Pippen, so what the hell that got to do with Mike? Mike was not even on the team. I mean, why would you put that? Why would you put this in that? This ain't have nothing to do with The Last Dance. Okay, if you want to go back and show clips of 84, 85, 90, the struggle, what the hell does Scottie Pippen not going in the ball game has to do with this? And I don't agree with Scottie. They had Scottie last. Go ahead.
It just showed you, Shannon, how much they missed Michael. That killer will leadership, that psycho-driven leadership, that ruthless, heartless, quote-unquote, bullying that you talk about. They missed it that year. They weren't quite the same. They had a good year. Scottie was a very talented player. He made the All-Star team. Horace Grant made the All-Star team. Even BJ made the All-Star team. And they had a very good year. But when they needed Michael Jordan, he was not there. Scottie was in the Michael role, and he's simply not Michael Jordan. Period.
But
End of
the
story.
problem, Skip, and Scottie Pippen was also All-Star Game MVP. Skip, I believe Scottie should have handled it differently. He should have said, Phil, I'm shooting the last shot. I'm not taking the ball. Don't go in, because, Skip, LeBron was in a very similar situation. You remember David Black called a play. LeBron was supposed to take the ball out and pass it to Kyrie. LeBron said, bull jive. Give me the ball. I'm taking the last shot. Scottie says, hold on. If I'm number 2 all these years, number 1 steps away, I get thrust, and I've done a great job. Remember, Skip, the year Michael retired, there was 57 and 25. The year he retired, they're 55 and 27. So they only lost 2 fewer games. Scottie said, hold on, Phil, wait a minute. If I'm the best player, I get that you come, Skip. You know how it is. Somebody could have hit like 15 shots. Michael Jordan's going to want to take the last shot, because, Skip, you remember the finals. They were leaving the first finals. They were leaving Paxson wide open. And Jordan still wanted to take the shot because, Skip, that's how he's wired. Well, Scottie says, my job is not to bully anybody or beat anyone down, but I'm going to lead in a different way. And he felt that he had earned the right to take the last shot. I don't agree. You're not going to find anybody that's going to agree with Scottie Pippen, because the worst thing you can do to a team is quit on it. And then your teammates saying that you quit or label you a quitter. He was wrong in this situation, Skip, but I believe Phil was wrong. If you're going to go down 0-3, go down 0-3 with Scottie Pippen taking that shot. He earned that right.
Again, Kukoc had made 6 walk-off shots that year, and he made a 7th. So he proved Phil right. He did it again. He actually saved Scottie from even worse historical disgrace, because they did at least survive and get to the Game 7 against the Knicks.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, on Saturday, Saturday, we saw live sports make a return with UFC 249, but with no fans in attendance. The headliner was Tony Ferguson versus Justin Gaethje for the interim lightweight title. And Gaethje outlasted Ferguson, winning by a technical knockout in the 5th round. So, Shannon, how did it affect your viewing experience, the outcome, but also with no fans in the arena? What'd you make of it?
Well, it was definitely different, Skip, but it didn't affect me for the simple fact I'm not watching the fans. I've tried to get an understanding of what's going on, be it the field, the court, and in this case, the octagon. And so I think it made the biggest difference for the athletes inside the cage. For the simple fact, Skip, they can hear now. They're responding to Daniel Cormier. They can hear him talking about the adjustments and how they should be fighting. And you hear the fighters like, I made adjustments accordingly. So I think that's the biggest thing. They would have never been able to hear that. It's gonna, and if they have boxing, let's just say for the sake of argument, Skip, you have boxing. You're gonna be able to hear Roy Jones or Lennox Lewis or whomever is calling the fights, talking about the adjustments that the guys should be making and what the guy that's possibly winning the fight, what he's doing and how they should counteract. I think that's gonna be the biggest difference. Skip, it doesn't affect the viewer at home. He's not looking, for the most part, I don't think they're looking like, I wonder who's at this fight. I wonder who's at the ball game, who's sitting courtside. That might be height. But once the action starts, I'm not paying attention to the stands. I'm not paying attention. And, it's maybe it gets them back in the game. It's going to be very different for basketball, for football, Skip, because the home field, there will be no advantage because everybody's going to be able to hear the count and all that. So there's no advantages for being at home or playing on no advantage or disadvantage as opposed to being at home or playing on the road. But for me, Skip, I'm watching and I'm like, damn, it is really quiet, but I'm still, you can hear the licks even, you can hear the licks. He's like, damn. That explains why I never want to do this kind of combat sport, Skip, because you can hear those licks, and those are not sound effects. You go to the movie, you hear all these sound effects. Nah, that's real flesh hitting flesh, and it didn't sound good, but this is what the fans want to hear. But for me, Skip, it didn't change my viewing experience. It really did not. I think it affected or impacted somehow some of the fighters' fought, but it didn't change my viewing experience.
I'll go with you on your final point, but I do think it dramatically affected the outcome of the main event fight that we're discussing right now. Tony Ferguson was the prohibitive favorite here, and I think that no crowd hugely helped the hopeless underdog, quote unquote, Justin Gaethje, because Tony Ferguson had been on an 8-fight roll, and he had become not only the favorite in this fight, but a huge fan favorite to the point that everybody loves all of his sort of Spider-Man moves and antics. And if you had put this fight where it was supposed to have been, if this had been in T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas with 20,000 people blowing the roof off that place, I believe it would have elevated the early attack mode of Tony Ferguson. It would have gotten him going faster against an underdog who was dangerously underestimated. Obviously, this was supposed to be Khabib, and it was supposed to be the title fight that everybody was looking forward to until the pandemic and the travel restrictions made Khabib a late scratch. So obviously, Tony Ferguson spent much of his camp preparing for the new baddest man on the planet, Khabib, and his style of his early attack. He goes for the takedown. He wants to get you on the ground and wrestle you into chokehold submission. And all of a sudden, Tony Ferguson doesn't have to stand and exchange. This was all boxing to me. There wasn't a single takedown. There was zero ground fighting, zero wrestling going on here. This was a straight-up boxing match. And it looked like Tony Ferguson wasn't quite ready for it. And he didn't have a crowd to propel him. He couldn't feed off a crowd because it's just dead silence in there. You could, you could hear the corner people. You could hear their commands or their encouragement, whatever they're yelling from the side. And obviously, the announcers and the commentators are trying to keep it down a little bit because they know they can be heard in the ring. And then, Shannon, to your point, which is a great point, you could actually hear fist on cheekbone, splat, crack. You could hear it where you're hearing fist on nose, fist on jaw, whack, crack. And it's a scary sound. And I think Tony Ferguson was hearing his own demise right in his ears. Because when you get 20,000 people in there, you can't hear anything. You can barely hear yourself think. So this is a brave new world we're in. And I told you Friday, I don't know. I still would think the New Orleans Saints would beat Tom Brady and his new team, Tampa Bay, in that opener at New Orleans, live on Fox in the 4:25 window Eastern time on opening week 1. But the point is, it's going to be a little harder for Drew Brees and company to get rolling the way they usually get rolling because it's possible there'll be nobody in the stands. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe there'll be a third of the people in the stands, but it's possible it will be empty on opening weekend. So, again, it gave us an early taste of what can happen where the underdog suddenly has a big advantage because the favorite at quote-unquote home, like in T-Mobile, doesn't have a crowd. This was in Jacksonville. And I think Tony Ferguson couldn't get quite up for it. While Gaethje said after the fight, I told my crew, my people, that I went into the octagon tonight to die. He went in with the skill, but with a will of, I'll die trying. So not only did he want it worse, I think, than Tony Ferguson, but once he got rolling, once he got in the flow, and he realized he could just flat out outstrike, outbox the favored Tony Ferguson, he just got stronger and stronger and stronger because there was no crowd to re-inspire Tony Ferguson. So it was an eye-opener for me on Saturday night.
Skip, and this is why you have to be careful accepting a fight with a fill-in. Because you've been prepared, let's just say for the sake of argument, Skip, okay, I'm getting ready to face the Patriots. And all of a sudden they back out and I'm gonna play the Ravens. Well, Skip, I've been practicing for a totally different offense. You've been preparing yourself for a totally different style of tactic or fight than what you're gonna get. This guy has nothing to lose. He can throw caution to the wind in a situation. We've seen this in boxing matches, Skip. And if I'm not mistaken, I think John Jones won one of his first titles as a fill-in, Skip. You have to be careful. You're preparing for a certain type of fighter. And then all of a sudden, the fighter that you're preparing for, he's unable to do an injury, travel ban, or whatever, Skip. And it's like, okay, well, this guy's out. Well, will you fight him? Sure, I've been in training camp, but no, but you haven't been in training camp for that particular fighter. So you got to be careful, Skip, accepting something last minute. Because and I believe that's what happened to Tony Ferguson. Now, he did hear Dana White says that Ferguson looked a little slow, and maybe it was the weight cut. Obviously, you know, Skip, these guys walk around probably 20, 25 pounds heavier than what they go into the ring on the cage on a particular night. But in a situation like this, Skip, you have to be careful accepting a fight when you're expecting one thing and then you get something else, Skip. It's kind of like a surprise. And Skip, it's like we practice all week for a certain blitz. They don't give us the blitz and they give us something else and they catch us. Well, I wasn't expecting that. So imagine you spent 4, 5, 6 weeks preparing for Khabib. Well, 3 weeks before the fight, no Khabib, and you're going to fight Gaethje. Okay, sure, no problem. I've been training anyway. You haven't been training for him. And for me, Skip, like I said, the viewing experience at home, Skip, now we can really, really hear crack, leg kicks, and strikes of that nature. But they can hear the commentators not only assessing the fight, but what he should be doing or what the opponent is doing. And so I think it's going to be like golf, Skip. Dana White's going to tell him, like, guys, you guys are going to have to talk in your golf voice because they can hear. That
is correct. Yep. Nope, I agree. So, fast forward, I wouldn't mind seeing Gaethje and Conor McGregor. I would, because I would love if styles make fights. Conor fancies himself a boxer, obviously, and he hung in there with Floyd for 10 rounds. And this would be another great, quote-unquote, boxing match to me if they just stood and exchanged in the middle of the octagon and see who was man enough or skilled enough to take and make all the punishment. And I would just love to see Conor. I think it'd be a very intriguing fight because as great as Gaethje was the other night, do I think he could stay on his feet against Khabib? Well, nobody has been able to. Obviously, Conor wasn't able to. So I figure Khabib could get Gaethje on the ground fairly quickly, and when he did, it would be hard because he could just bear hug him, and I'm not sure Gaethje's built to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Skip, when I look at this, I look at Gaethje, Skip. He doesn't look like a boxer. He looks like a fighter. And if you look at Conor McGregor has a boxing skill background, and that's why he was able to go 10 rounds. We can say, well, he went 10 rounds with Floyd. Floyd was a little older, but he's a better boxer. So this, if you're going to turn it into a street fight, you're going to turn it into a brawl, okay. But I think Conor has great boxing skills, and so he was wild a little bit with Tony Ferguson because Tony Ferguson is nowhere even thought of as being a boxer. So I think some of the shots that Ferguson missed, Conor clip you with one of those left hands. You go into sleep. You go into sleep.
Okay.
The gloves are too light.
This would be a great fight. That's what.
Yeah.
I would rather see this one first, and then if Gaethje could beat Conor, Khabib would be obviously at the top of the list at that point.
Right. But you see Conor and now Nate Diaz going back and forth again. I don't know if I want to see Conor and Nate Diaz again, Skip.
No, I agree.
I like Gaethje McGregor, though. I like where you're going there, Skip. Just nice to have live sports back. And, you know, it was a start.
No mercy.
While discussing the ongoing negotiations with Dak Prescott, Stephen Jones revealed one philosophy the Cowboys have. While admitting that they love Dak as a player and leader, Jones also said, quote, there's all sorts of analytics out there that show if your quarterback takes up too big of a percentage of your salary cap, it decreases your chances to win. So, Shannon, does Stephen have a point?
Yeah, on top of his head. That's the only point that he has, Jenny Taft. Hold on. I got some analytics for you that's even more compelling than the analytics that Stephen Jones tried to use. If you do not have a good quarterback, analytics will show it greatly decreases, even more so than a quarterback eating up cap space. If you do not have a good quarterback, Skip Bayless, you know this. Your chances of getting to winning a Super Bowl greatly decreases. See, what's happening here, and it started in February of 2019, when one Stephen and Jerry Jones rolled to the podium and started negotiating in public. And what they tried to do is what they're doing now. I look at contract negotiations like a trial, Jenny. One side wants to negotiate in the court. One side wants to try to litigate this in the public. Guess which is which? Because we keep hearing a lot. I haven't heard Todd France say anything. I have not heard one thing from Dak Prescott. But Stephen Jones, Jerry Jones, and a lot of others that's carrying the water for the Dallas Cowboys have been doing a lot of talking, trying to sway public opinion. Well, if Dak doesn't give us a hometown discount, he doesn't care about winning. He's being selfish. He has to factor in there's perks to playing quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, when you're good, I want top dollar. Let me tell you what analytics also said, Jenny. Analytics said you shouldn't take a running back in the first round. Can you tell the people at home, Skip Bayless, what round they drafted Zeke in? Oh, they also said you should not pay a running back top dollar. Can you tell the people what they did last year, Skip? Gave Zeke top dollar. What did they say about paying offensive linemen that cannot produce points and making 3 of them of the 5 offensive linemen the highest paid at their position? What did analytics say about that? Now, all of a sudden, you want to look at analytics when it comes to Dak Prescott. You disregarded him and took a running back with a top 3, top 4 pick. You disregarded him and paid him on the second contract and made him the highest paid. You disregarded making linemen the highest paid at their position. Disregard all that. Now, Jenny, we big in analytics. And the analytics says if a quarterback eats up too much of your cap space, it decreases your chance of winning. Dak says, I tell you what, make that up on the next guy. Make the next guy. Because you didn't do that with DeMarcus Lawrence. You didn't do that. You didn't worry about analytics. So what you going to do, Jerry, what I'm telling you, you're going to do, when C.D. Lamb and Michael Gallup come up, take that out on them. Do that when Diggs, when he come up, take that out on them. You're going to give me my money. All of it.
So when I read this statement from Stephen Jones, I didn't think much of it because it's not like the analytics he spoke of were second or third level analytics, incomprehensible to most minds. These are kindergarten analytics. It's 2 + 2 = 4, which is the number Dak wears, analytics. It's the simple idea of if you take too much of your salary cap and everybody gets the same amount to spend on their roster, if you take too big a chunk of it, it's obviously going to decrease your ability to surround your quarterback with supporting cast that he will need to win championships. See Tom Brady. See GOAT. What has Tom Brady routinely done for the last 20 years, now 21? He has taken far less than his market value. Even next year in Tampa Bay and the following year, he makes $25 million. He readily accepted $25 million from the Bucs. Didn't even fight about it because he wanted to go win another championship or 2 or 3 to show Bill Belichick how wrong he was, to push Brady out the back door. So let's look at Dak. Dak already, if he signs the franchise tag tender before July 15th, next year he'll make $31.4 million. Let's see, GOAT's making 25 for the next 2 years. Dak Prescott can make 31.4, and then if he gets franchised again, he can make 38. You're kidding me. And by all accounts, on the table right now is an offer in the 35-ish range for 5 years, with somewhere between up to maybe 110 million of that guaranteed. And clearly, it's not just about the years, it's about the money. Because clearly, Dak and his new agent, Todd France, are digging in and holding out, literally holding out, for 40-something million for only 4 years. So they want it all guaranteed. So I'm thinking they're asking for a guarantee in the $150 million range. And even the great Shannon Sharpe, the Hall of Famer, has told me regularly for 4 years here on Undisputed, almost 4 years, Dak Prescott's just an average quarterback. Even Joe Theismann said, and I worked with Joe for years at ESPN, and Joe Theismann, Redskin, great quarterback, obviously, won Super Bowls for the Redskins, and sort of grew up hating the Dallas Cowboys, but he was quoted yesterday as saying, hey, Dak Prescott's not a top 5 quarterback. He's a fool not to take $35 million a year. Well, I would tell he's not a fool, but again, that's his value. I believe in him. I have defended him. But I never said he was top 5. Maybe he's on the verge of being a top 10 quarterback. But his team went 8-8 last year because he missed some plays. For the first time, he left some plays on the table. They have won the division 2 of the 4 years. He has been a Pro Bowl quarterback. He's been a playmaker for this team, but he has to do it with his legs as well as his arm. And I'm just going off what Shannon Sharpe has repeatedly beaten me over the head with. He's just a mediocre quarterback. He's an average. He's somewhere in the middle of the NFL pack as a quarterback. And you say, well, the analytics tell you you can't win without a good one. Well, are you sure you're saying he's a good one? Because you never told me he was a good quarterback. You told me he was an average quarterback. So you again, Shannon, yeah, you despise the Dallas Cowboys even worse than Joe Theismann does, and it's clear that you want to wreck my salary cap and my locker room by signing Dak Prescott to a $40+ million a year contract with all of it guaranteed, where if Dak can't quite live up to being a top 5 quarterback or even a top 1, We're talking about the kind of offer that the kind of demand that they're asking for that will make even the Kansas City Chiefs officials swallow hard, because they don't even want to pay Patrick Mahomes the kind of money that Dak and his new agent are asking for right now. I told you, it's out of bounds. It's unrealistic. It's simply wrong, and Jerry knows it's wrong, and the Jerry Jones has a reputation for overpaying players. That Jerry Jones is finally digging in on his side and saying, I'm sorry, that's just too much. As much as I love Dak Prescott, I can't do it. I can't wreck our chances of improving our football team for the next 4 years if I give him $40+ million, all of it guaranteed. It's not a sure shot. He's 1-2 in the postseason. It's very good, but not great. So I can't sell it. And now I've got Andy Dalton. So if they do want to hold out and they want to miss games next year, God bless, good luck, because I believe my Dallas Cowboys can win games with Andy Dalton. I believe they could win 10 games with Andy Dalton. Will they be quite as good as with Nope. But are they now at least in the ballpark? Do they have a reasonable facsimile of Dak? Yes, they do. So I'm now in a much better place with this. Dak has lost a lot of leverage. So now he needs to come to grips with reality and come back to the negotiating table and back slowly but surely toward the middle of the negotiating table with some compromise that will still land him $36, $37 million a year for 5 years, and he'll be good to go because he still makes God knows how much money off the field. He's still got 12 national TV commercials. He's going to be in a very good place and be very fairly paid.
I love you, Skip. I love what you try to do. Now, I remember for the last 3 years, every time that I say Dak isn't very good, Cowboy fans flood my Twitter. Get on my, you're just a Cowboy hater. Skip Bayless has labeled me the #1 Cowboy hater because when I say Dak isn't good, he's top 10. Look at Dak. I can show you all these numbers. Throws down the field, completion percentage, QBR. He led in QBR up until his last game. All this, Cowboy fans, now it's time to get paid. He ain't even top 10. He's on the cusp. For the past 3 years, he's been inside the top 10 for Skip Bayless. Now it's time for him to get his money. He's on the cusp of being in the top 10. All these Cowboys fans, Dak this, Dak that. Now it's time to get money. I'll take Andy Dalton. Really? So you had no problem paying contract after. Let me ask you a question, Skip. Do you think, do they go farther with Dak and no Tyron Smith, or with Tyron Smith and no Dak? Because all these guys that they gave money to, from D-Law to Zeke Elliott, Jalen Smith, Lyle Collins, Travis Frederick, he's retired. Zach Martin, got their money, no problem with it. Now it's time for me to get my money. Analytics want to come into effect. Oh, Jerry, Skip, you just said now, he's going to make $31 million this year. They franchise him next year, that's 37, 38. So that's $68 million in 2 years. So we bumped that, put another 38 on there right there, Skip Bayless. Wow. You see what we did right there, Skip? Now we're looking at $107 million, fully guaranteed. Skip Bayless, I tell you what I'll do. Since you want to give me 35 and y'all keep throwing $35 million out there like it's something big, I'll do 5 years, 175, 108, 110 million, fully guaranteed. We got us a deal. Do we have a deal? 107 to 110, fully guaranteed for 175 million over 5 years. Do we have a deal? I didn't think so.
Wait a second, you lost me there. What's 175? You mean 35 times 5? Is that what you're...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, by all the reporting, and I don't know whether to trust these reports or not, but that's reportedly the deal on the table right now that Dak and Todd France are turning down. So do we have a deal, Shannon? I ask you that question.
No. Yeah. Yes, we would have a deal.
You can have it today. Listen. You can have it right now. We can throw a party. You can have it.
No,
it's on the table. It's sitting there. You just laid it right out.
Skip.
That's what's on the table.
Skip. No. What is the fully guaranteed? Aaron Rodgers got $79 million fully guaranteed. Russell Wilson got $70 million fully. No.
They're saying
not guaranteed. Fully guaranteed or just guaranteed?
I think
I'm talking
so.
about fully. I'm talking about. No.
No, fully.
I'm not talking. No, they're not. I don't believe that. That was a number I just made up. That if they got 110 million fully guaranteed, they're foolish. Now I don't believe it's I believe it's 110 million guaranteed, but not fully guaranteed. Because Skip, I don't need no injury protection. I don't need on the second day of the new league year, you get no. I'm talking about when I signed Dak Prescott, I know I have $110 million coming my way. So
I'm pretty sure that's on the table. Okay, and then back to the question you asked me. The question about, do you want Ty Smith or Dak? Well, I don't need to answer that question because it's a hypothetical that doesn't work. I can have both of them right here, right now, signed, sealed, and delivered. Yeah. Dak Prescott would immediately become the highest paid quarterback in the history of this league. Now, in short order, could he be slightly passed by Deshaun and then passed by Patrick Mahomes? Yes, he will. Is he as good as they are? No, he's not. I told you from the start, Deshaun to me is a little better than Dak Prescott, just a little better. I still love Dak. I'm still very thankful that we have Dak Prescott, but I don't like the way he's operating right now. And I told you, I don't like him holding out. He's losing by the day my respect because I don't like quarterback holdouts. It's damaging. It shows a bad side of the quarterback. You have to negotiate as the leader of the team in good faith. And he's not operating in good faith right now. And I think even Jerry and Steven are starting to lose some respect, some trust in Dak going forward as the leader of the football team.
Well, but by your notion, because the ends justify the means, I'm willing to lose some respect if I'm going to gain some guaranteed money. So I'll lose your respect, but I'm going to gain that guaranteed money because that's how you do it, right? The ends justify the means. Michael Jordan was a bully. He pulled those guys up. They won titles. That's what Machiavellian, Skip. The ends justify the means. So if that's the way we're going to do it, I'm going to lose some respect, but I'm going to gain a boatload of money.
No mercy.
As we continue to witness just how competitive Michael Jordan was during The Last Dance, Dennis Rodman said that's one area that helps MJ in the GOAT debate. When comparing MJ and LeBron, Rodman said that LeBron, quote, doesn't have that desire to win at any cost that Jordan had. Shannon, is there any truth to this?
No. And I want to know why Dennis Rodman feels he needs to keep LeBron's names in his dentures. It's not good enough. See, Dennis Rodman was out of sight, out of mind. And then all of a sudden, the documentary, I think 2 series ago, Skip, they're talking about him going to Vegas, and now all of a sudden he wants to be back in the national spotlight. See, it's not good enough. Skip, here's the thing. Dennis Rodman can say 1,000 words, and no newspaper, nobody will pick it up. But he says 1,001 word, and that one word is LeBron, you already know what's going to happen. And that's where we are right now, Skip Bayless. Why is this man constantly in your mouth? Because, see, this is what happens, Skip, and we've talked about this before. Everybody feels their era is the best. We feel sacred. We hold that dearly. And if somebody says somebody from a different era is better than somebody in us, we feel that's a knock on all of us because we're supposed to have the best. So now it lessens, it cheapens all of us. No, you can stand alone. LeBron can be great on his own. Okay, we want to debate the GOAT talk. Okay, fine. You like Jordan? I'm not finna fight anybody because they're saying Jordan is better than LeBron. I like LeBron. I'm not finna fight anybody on that stance, but that's just what I believe. But Dennis Rodman, for all of a sudden, every word that comes out of his mouth has something to do with LeBron. Skip, he can dress in a wedding dress. He can put on a wig. He can do all the stuff, and nobody would pay him any attention. But the moment he said something about LeBron, we already know it's going to be in a negative light, and it's going to spread like wildfire in the California hills. And that's what he keeps doing. Keep that man. That man is in quarantine with his wife and kid. He's training. He's not thinking about Dennis Rodman. But for some reason, we keep flipping over rocks, and this critter keeps crawling out from under with something negative to say. Bruh, why you got to keep that man's name in your mouth?
Shannon, quick point of order. When Dennis Rodman dressed in a wedding dress, he was on the cover of every sports section in America. He was on magazine covers. He was hot in those years.
Skip,
he dominated the conversation when he was dating Madonna and Carmen Electra. He dominated national barbershop conversation. So,
Skip,
the reason I love Dennis Rodman, go ahead.
My only point is, Skip, yes, but you have to realize what happens now if he dresses in a wedding dress, if he cross-dresses. He's not in the NBA. He's not winning rebounding titles. He's not winning championships. He's not dating Madonna. He doesn't have that. So now what? The only way he can get his name in the headlines is by doing what? Trashing GOAT James. Come on, Skip, you know how this works. This is what I tell football players all the time, Skip. You might think you're different outside, but people want to talk to you and want to hear what you got to say because you're in the NFL. You'll find out once you're out of the NFL how many reality TV shows you get once you leave the NFL. Then come talk to your boy.
What I love and have always loved about Dennis Rodman is that beneath the crazy, wacky, dysfunctional Dennis Rodman is this sort of ineloquent brilliance, basketball brilliance, this simple basketball genius that allowed him at 6 feet 8 inches tall to dominate the league as a below-the-rim rebounder. Year after year after year, he led the league in rebounding at 6'8" because he was so instinctive. He had the gift of seeing it before it happened. And he had the pleasure and the honor of getting to play with Michael Jeffrey Jordan. He knows. This was a bullseye statement. Yes, he's being interviewed more because of The Last Dance. But if you ask him about LeBron, he's just going to tell you the point-blank truth that you can't handle. It's a bingo truth. It's right on the button because it's exactly what I've been saying since 2006 on national television. Michael wanted to win. He had that raging desire to win at any cost that LeBron just isn't built to have. LeBron's more of a lover than a fighter. LeBron, I've always said, he's a really nice guy, truly a nice guy, to a fault. He's too nice of a guy to lift a team and drive a team the way Jordan drove a team to 6 championships in 6 tries with 6 finals MVPs. In the end, Michael Jordan was about killer will and supreme mental clutch toughness and psycho drive that I don't see in LeBron. LeBron can degenerate under fire into this finger-pointing blame deflector who will tend to throw his teammates under the public bus. Witness the quote during the 2016 Super Bowl that we attended in Houston, in which he, after a game in New Orleans, a loss in New Orleans for the Cleveland Cavaliers, said, "We're top-heavy as, you know what, bleep." And Jordan never would have said that. Jordan's not going to dismiss his teammates. Jordan's going to do it behind closed doors that we're getting open now in the documentary. But he ridiculed and drove his teammates in practice, in the locker room, on the team plane. He did not do it through the media. There was no social media where LeBron takes these subtle, between the lines, passive-aggressive shots at Kevin Love. You know, are you with us or not? Are you within or without? I couldn't even understand what he was talking about, and I don't think Kevin could either. LeBron doesn't love one-on-one, face-to-face confrontation. He shies from that. He does it through social media. He was born to be on social media, and his billions of blind witnesses love him and follow him like this modern-day Pied Piper on social media, but they're blinded to what he really is until now. And I think billions of blind witnesses are getting their eyes open to, that guy, he was on another plane, another level from LeBron James. And that's all Dennis is saying, that rage to win, that drive, that thing, that Jordan had this great quote last night, Shannon, that just summed it up. And he got emotional when he was saying it, and he finally had to say break because he just couldn't talk anymore. But he said, my mentality was, I'm going to win at any cost, at any cost. And if you don't want to go with me on this, if you don't want to live with my regimented mentality, then I don't want you alongside me. And if you're going to stay beside me until you reach my level, I'm going to ridicule you. And if you can't reach my level, it's going to be hell for you. That's it. That's the essence. That's not LeBron James we're talking about. That's Michael Jeffrey Jordan, the GOAT. That's what made him the GOAT. It wasn't pretty. It was often ugly. Will Perdue said in the documentary, he often crossed the line, and he did. You call it bullying. I call it genius leadership. It's the way.
No, it's not genius, Skip. He crossed the line. The man is telling you he crossed the line, but you're saying it's okay because he won 6 championships?
It worked.
It worked well.
It worked. He said, I'm going to pull people along who don't want to be pulled along. That was Michael's quote last night. He zeroed in on the weakness in every one of his teammates, and he attacked their weakness in practice and in the locker room and tried to make it a strength that he could lean on and trust in big playoff games. And it worked because he did toughen up Horace Grant and Scott Burrell and Steve Kerr and Will Perdue. He toughened them all up and brought them up to his level come playoff time. Result, 6 for 6 in championships.
And see, and there the problems I have, Skip, is that because he's 6 for 6, everything he did to get that, we overlook. No, Skip, no way, no how. We can't do that, Skip. I get it. Michael Jordan is supremely talented, but you can't say bullying is okay. LeBron James says we're top heavy. You and others excoriated him. Well, he's taking shots. You can't do that. Michael Jordan took literal shots, not figuratively, literal shots.
No, he never took any shots publicly. Nothing through the media ever. He didn't take shots at Scott Burrell or Horace Grant in the media. No.
Skip, I said he took a literal shot. He punched the man in the face. That's not figuratively, that's literal. That's what the term figuratively and literally means. He literally did take a shot. What am I missing?
And did it work? What did Steve Kerr say? In a weird way, it was the greatest thing that could have happened. I stood up to him, and I won his respect. And Michael was quoted last night as saying, I gained respect for him. All of a sudden, they're on equal footing. I can trust him to take a big shot and make a big shot in a big finals game. Bingo. Way to go, Michael.
And then we're looking at the documentary. He's calling Scotty Burrell a garden utensil, a garden instrument. How many times? What is that motivating? Now I got to step you. I got to check you, bruh. I'm not going to continue to let you call me out my name. Skip, this is unacceptable. Skip, we got to stop this. This is not okay. Skip, you can't say because he was 6 for 6. Everything that he did to get there is okay. That's what you're doing. You can't do that. It's okay to say Jordan was unbelievable, but some of the things he did was wrong. It's okay to say some of the things that he did was wrong. You're window dressing. You're green lighting. Everything he did to get to 6 and 6, and that for me will not fly.
I'm getting goosebumps talking about this because I was there. I saw it from the inside out. He was relentlessly all over ridiculing Scott Burrell. And he pushed him. He even said last night, I tried to get him to fight me in a good way. Well, to your point, as you said earlier in the show, is there a good way to fight? He just wanted, he thought Scott Burrell, who once upon a time was the 20th overall pick in the draft, who was drafted twice by Major League Baseball, who could have had a future in baseball as well as basketball. He saw him as soft from the start, and Scotty Burrell was soft. He had all kinds of nice shooting talent, but he was not mentally tough enough. Jordan toughened him up, and I told you on that run to the final Last Dance championship at Utah was a crucial game in a first-round matchup, a five-game series at New Jersey. New Jersey played them close twice at the United Center, and Game 3 was sold out, blow the roof off in New Jersey, and I thought they were in danger of losing that game. And guess who came up big? Well, Jordan came up huge because he had 38. But Scotty Burrell came off the bench in that game and scored 23 in 24 minutes. He lived up. And I think Michael was like a proud papa or a proud big brother after that game because he singled out Scotty Burrell and complimented him in the post-game session that I attended because he knew he had toughened him up enough that he could make big shots in a crucial game that could have gotten them in trouble if they had lost it. They won it and ended that series thanks to Scott Burrell. So he contributed in ways he was probably not capable of contributing until Michael made him a pet project. You can call it bullying, but bullying is when it's a bad guy with a black heart who wants to just bully somebody for bullying's sake because he's insecure about his own manhood. Jordan was as secure about his manhood as any player I was ever around. This was coaching. He was doing Phil Jackson's job of motivating, and he did it beautifully with Scott Burrell, and it worked.
Yeah, Skip, we got to be careful of this because what you're doing is that you're taking Michael Jordan and you're looking at the great ball player and you say because there's no malintent, there's no hatred in his heart, it's not bullying. Yes, it is. That's exactly what it is, Skip. You do not have to have ill intentions. If you use your position, if you use your place of authority in a situation to suppress, because that's what he was doing, calling that man out of his name, saying I wanted him to fight in a good way. What good way is that a fight? I don't know. Maybe this is how they do it up there in Wilmington, North Carolina. But from where I'm from, there is no good way to fight except square up and bump. That's the only way I know. So if that's what you're trying to get at, Skip, but you can't do that. You're saying because he had a good heart. I mean, hold on. That's what you say. I'm sure there are other people that came in contact with Michael Jordan that would say his heart isn't good. So why does when this is his documentary, I get it. But nah, you got to miss me with this one. I don't agree with everything Michael did. 6 for 6 is what it is. Him being all-time great is what it is. But some of this, what he did, nah. You're going to have to miss me with that one, Skip.
Shannon, I believe I was around Michael enough to know he actually had a really nice guy side to him. He could be a nice guy, and it was real, authentic, genuine. But in the end, when it was time to win a championship, there's no time for Mr. Nice Guy. This isn't church league. It's not even AAU. It's not YMCA basketball. This is for legacy. This is for history. And he's going to lift you with him. As Steve Kerr said last night, he's going to make you be him so that he can trust you in the postseason. And again, Bill Winnington said, hey, in the end, it worked. And I don't think any of them hate Michael now because he won them a whole lot of jewels.
No mercy.
Welcome back to Undisputed. So Zion Williamson's former marketing agency claims that he took illegal benefits from Duke, Nike, and Adidas dating back to 2014. These details emerged from court documents that became public on Sunday. Duke released a statement saying they had been alerted to potentially potential eligibility issues with Zion, but found no evidence to support that. So, Shannon, how bad does this look for Duke?
Well, right now, Skip, what it does, it lumps them into the situation where they look like other programs, the Kansas, some of the Kentuckys, and some of the other teams that allegedly had done things that's wrong. Because sometimes I think we look at Coach K and Duke, and we're like, man, Duke, you know, an education at Duke is worth $60,000, and Coach K has really been impeccable. But, Skip, for me, it just lumps them into that category with some of the other teams that allegedly did things to lure top high school athletes to their programs. But until some of this is proven, all this is an accusation. Skip, I don't like accusation as being fact. I don't like accusation as being guilt. Prove it. Now, she says she wants Zion to admit. Skip, let me get this straight. You want, let's just say for the sake of argument, Skip, I had done something wrong. You want me to produce the evidence to show you what I actually did. Here you go. This is what I did. This is what I did it. Because that's essentially what they're asking Zion to do. Zion, we want you to produce the information that would incriminate you and Duke so we can turn it over to a court. Really? Really? To law enforcement so we can win it? No. Now, Skip, look, I don't really know what happened. I guess what probably happened, and I've seen this happen before, Skip, an agent wants to represent or a company wants to represent a player. The player says, okay, I'll sign with you, but you're going to have to give me some money up front. They take $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, and then they don't sign with said company or said representative. And then the next thing you know, we got a lawsuit on our hand. This might be a situation here. But until this lady or whomever it is, Skip, can prove it, bring the receipts that Zion and his family took improper benefits, and Duke knew about this. Skip, I don't really know what leg to have to stand on. Because if I'm Zion, I ain't producing nothing. Because I'm saying nothing happened. So what is there to produce? There's nothing happened. And what they going to give back? Skip, it's not like they won a national title. What do you want Zion to give back, number one? That's the only thing he got from Duke.
Okay, I agree with your final takeaway. All Zion has to do is basically ignore this and not respond to this. I don't think it's the best look for Duke basketball, which has been, as we know, historically the squeaky cleanest program in all of America. And obviously, Coach K has been the Teflonest coach there is. And I think, by and large, even though they have admitted over the years an occasional player of questionable character, and they paid for that, that in the end, that they have no history of allegations against them for cheating. This is the first flat-out, straight-on, direct hit accusation. And obviously, just to frame what happened, Zion signed with this company and decided he'd made a premature mistake. His mom was in the decision. His stepfather was in on the decision. This Prime Sports, they wanted out from under the deal, and they wanted to go with CAA. So to do so, they had to sue Prime Sports and say, we want out, and there's a loophole here that we can jump through, which is you're not certified by the NBA Players Association, and you're not registered as an athlete agent in North Carolina or Florida. And now Prime Sports is countersuing, fighting the battle, and they want $100 million in punitive damages, and they're also going to take their pound of public flesh because in their filing, they are publicly daring Zion to admit to this and admit to that. And the key one is you have to, we dare you to admit that your mother and your stepfather demanded and received gifts and economic benefits from persons acting on behalf of Duke University directly or indirectly to influence Zion to attend Duke to play basketball. Well, that's a powerful accusation. Right now, it sounds like the NCAA is focused and fixated on the wiretap scandal in which a Kansas University assistant was caught on tape talking about what he would do, what their program would do to break the rules to sign Zion. So right now the focus is more on Kansas. As you know, there are serious allegations that have been levied against Kansas, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to walk away from this one, even though they continue to completely deny all accusations. Bill Self and company do. But right now it seems like the NCAA is more focused on Kansas than on Duke. But in the end, I don't think it's great for Duke that this came out. I think once you're accused this strongly, that even if there's no weight to it, there's a little bit of damage done. And yet, in the end, to your point, Shannon, I think Zion just shrugs and goes on about his business, and I think this will slowly but surely go away.
The only problem that I would have, Skip, if you say you're going to sign with this company and you take something from them, pay it back, and says, I changed my mind, and move forward. Don't take $500, $1 million, $2 million, use that money, and then says, nah, I'm going to go to CAA, their bigger brand, and they can do more for me. Don't do that. Don't do that. Skip, there are stories. Now, I know, like I said, I know personally of agents have come in trying to sign athletes, and they take the money, they take a car, or they take $500,000, and they're like, nah, I'm going somewhere else. Well, Skip, you have nothing written down, so it's able to move on. But, Skip, let's just say for the sake of that argument, Alabama or Ohio State, for 3 years in a row, they get the #1 running back, the #1 wide receiver, and the #1 quarterback. People gonna say, well, hold on, wait a minute. I understand you getting, top flight recruits, but how for 3 straight years you get the #1 player at three of the most important positions? How is that possible? What's going on here? You're gonna start looking into it. Because I'm gonna tell you what happened, Skip. I don't know if you remember the guy, Tank Black. Tank Black used to be my agent many, many years ago. But I left him and went with the guy that I'm currently with. Skip, he had 6 first-round draft picks. Agents lost their mind. How does Tank Black? He's not Lee Steinberg. He's not Tom Condon. How the hell he get 6? Well, they start digging around and come to find out he was paying some of the guys. Tank Black went and spent time went to the big house for about 3-4 years. So the look of it at Duke getting these guys, Skip, there might not be anything wrong, but the look of it, like, well, how every year they keep getting. Kentucky had that spell for a second, Skip. You remember they was getting Karl Anthony Towns, and they were getting Anthony Davis, and they getting John Wall, and they got Boogie Cousins. They getting like, well, hold on, wait a minute. So you mean to tell me a year at Kentucky and Duke is shorter than a year at Kansas, North Carolina, or UCLA? So in other words, a year there at those places, Skip, is only 30 days. Because if you only go and, Skip, to fill your 1 year of eligibility, something has to lure you. Because it's not like these guys like, you know what, I'm going to get my degree from Duke, and that thing going to look good on my wall. That ain't happening.
Obviously. Right. Okay, let me say, do I believe that all the top schools were offering Zion Williamson illegal inducements to sign with them? I just do. I just think that's the way of the world right now. And a lot of it is the NCAA's fault, because these kids should not be forced to have to play 1 year of college basketball. It's so hypocritical, and it's just so wrong. So it's hard for me to condemn them for breaking what I think are absurd rules.
If Zion got $5 million, then he was underpaid at Duke. He should have got more, because those lines, Skipping, they had LeBron, they had Jay-Z, they had people in America that don't even go to college games going to see this kid play. So I got no problem with it. If he got $5 million, he should have got another $5 million.
No mercy.
The latest episodes of The Last Dance showcase just how tough of a leader Michael Jordan really was. It also recapped the story of MJ and Steve Kerr getting into a physical altercation and throwing punches during a practice. Skip, you were there. You experienced MJ in person. So, in your opinion, was Jordan a bully or a leader?
Shannon Sharpe, my biggest takeaway from watching the first 8 episodes of The Last Dance is it is proving to me what I thought in 1998 when I saw it from the inside out. Michael Jordan is simply and was the greatest leader / motivator ever there was in the history of sports. Yes, I warned you going into this. It could come across as heartless and ruthless and cold-blooded. But the definition of a bully to me, a bully is a bad human being who preys on weaker human beings because he is so insecure about his own manhood. Michael was anything but insecure. He was supremely secure in his manhood. He just had a psycho drive to win at any cost. So right away, he realized that the best way to lift others up onto his level was to challenge their weakness, their soft spot. And through ridicule, through what you might call bullying and what Steve Kerr termed as just bludgeoning in practice, in the locker room, on the team plane, that, as Steve Kerr said, it was Michael's way of saying, if you can't handle the pressure from me, you won't be able to handle the pressure of the NBA playoffs. Michael said, I pulled people along who didn't want to be pulled along. And he went on to say, as he teared up, if you didn't like the way I was built to win at any cost, then I didn't need you alongside me. And if you wanted to stay alongside me, yes, I was going to ridicule you until you came up to my level. And if you didn't, it was going to be hell for you. And it was hell for Scott Burrell and for a while for Steve Kerr and for Horace Grant. But he lifted them up as far as he could lift them until all of them had key contributions in championship runs. It was a beautiful thing to watch, but it wasn't pretty to watch. So I get it. You're trying to dismiss it as bullying, but there was method to the madness, to the rage to win. He was actually motivating players to be something that they were not. Horace Grant didn't have the fire and the focus that Michael needed on a nightly basis, and he lifted him up as high as he could lift him. And Horace Grant was really good for the Chicago Bulls. So I'm sorry, it worked. It was 6 for 6 in the finals. And I don't believe one of those players today hates Michael Jordan. There's a side of him that can be a very nice guy. He didn't have a dark heart. He wasn't just a bad human being. In the end, he was a pretty good guy who could be not a nice guy when a championship was on the line.
Skip, do you believe Ray Lewis was a good leader?
Sure.
You believe Tom Brady was a good leader? Joe Montana, were they good
Great
leaders?
leader.
Okay.
Brady more
They did
so
it
than
that way.
Montana.
They did it their way. See, the notion that the only way that you can do this, that you can win titles, is by doing this. This is where I get pushback, Skip. I'm not questioning anything about Michael Jordan, the basketball player, because I believe good people can do some bad things. I believe great people at times can do some bad things, or at some point in time have been flawed in their approach. That's not to take anything away from what he's accomplished. Michael Jordan is historically pantheon great. We know that, Skip. But the notion is where I push back is that this is what was necessary. Really? So if anybody does this moving forward, whether you want to be tops in sales or you want to be this great athlete or whatever, it's okay to do this, is what Skip Bayless is saying, because Michael Jordan did it. And because Michael Jordan did it, it's okay. No, Skip, no. We got to, this notion that Michael didn't come from a bad, ill intention or a bad place, or his heart. Skip, I'm not in to try to peer into a man's soul and try to see what he is or what he isn't. All I know is that from the documentary, this is what happened. And why it happens, we can go back and forth about why it happened and this led to this and that. All I'm saying is, Skip, I believe there's more than one way to show leadership. It's hard for me to say bullying. That's just not my style. That's not some of the great leaders that I've been around. That wasn't their style. That's his style. But say that's what it is and says, but, that worked then. It is what it is. It was bullying. And move on. But to green light it, to give him a pass because he's Michael Jordan. Skip, you and I both know if it came out that LeBron James got in a fight or LeBron James was belittling someone, LeBron James really goes out of his way. His leadership is like, I'm trying to bring everybody together. Let's go out to eat. Let's drink wine or let's go to the movies. Here's I have all these endorsement deals. I will give you some of those. That's his style. We knock him for that. LeBron said, we top heavy, bro. Oh, LeBron James, Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan punching people. Oh, that's Mike. Woo! Everybody want to be like Mike. Come on, Skip. We got to stop this, man. Don't take anything away from him. I'm smart enough, Skip, to be able to compartmentalize Michael Jordan, the basketball player, Michael Jordan, the person, and Michael Jordan, the basketball player, leader. All those things can be separate, and they all can be three different people. But you can criticize and critique all of them.
Shannon Sharpe, LeBron James in 2016, as a Cavalier, after a loss, said, we're top-heavy as SH you-know-what. He called 9 players below their big 3 SH you-know-what. He called that, he just dismissed them publicly. Michael never did that. He never ridiculed or belittled or demeaned any teammate to the media or through the media. LeBron is passive-aggressive. He does it through social media or directly to the media. He wasn't confrontational the way Michael was. Michael was going to confront you behind closed doors and challenge you to rise up to his level of fierce competitor. And he said, I tried to get Scott Burrell to fight me in a good way. He wanted him to throw down on him because he would have hit him back and tried to toughen him up. It was motivating by fear. I have told you I saw one coach motivate by fear, and that was Jimmy Johnson in the 90s in Dallas. They won back-to-back Super Bowls, and trust me, he could ridicule like nobody I'd ever been around before, but he didn't attack or bully Michael Irvin or Troy Aikman or Emmitt Smith. But everybody else knew Jimmy's wrath. They were scared to death of Jimmy. And I love the quote from Judd Buechler in the documentary last night. The fear that Michael instilled and created was so thick. They were scared of him, but they also knew the opposition was scared of Michael Jordan. He stepped on the floor, and all those teammates of his were like, boy, we're glad he's on our side tonight. He's not on our side during practice, but now we're all together. Now we got Michael, and you don't got Michael, and watch what's going to happen. It worked. It's just the way he was built. It's the cloth he was cut from with a knife. And I loved watching it because nobody else could do it. LeBron's a lover, not a fighter. He couldn't motivate by fear. It's not how he was born and built. It's Michael's way, and it was the only way because he's the only person I've ever seen who could get away with doing it. And the fear did create a sort of deep love and an awe for Michael Jordan. And in the end, if we had a documentary, if somebody had gone rogue with the documentary and all those bulls were now spilling their guts about how much they hated Michael Jordan and despise him to this day, you'd have me on this. But that's not what they're saying. Will Perdue said, yeah, he's an a-hole. He's a jerk. Numerous times he crossed the line. But he said, now that I sit back and look at the big picture of it, he was a hell of a teammate, jewelry teammate. He won them immortality in sports. It was rare. No one's ever done it the way Michael did it, to the degree Michael did it. It worked. It was part of his aura and his mystique. So in the end, I'm not giving him a pass. The 6-0 gives him a pass. There's no green lighting. Yeah. He just did it, and they all loved it in the end. Even Steve Kerr loved it in the end.
Skip, so LeBron James saying we're top heavy as bleep maybe that doesn't motivate the players that's not Kyrie and Kevin Love. He said, well, LeBron thinks we top heavy as bleep. Well, I'm going to pick up my play because I'm going to show up I can carry my end of the weight. I can carry my load here, too. See, that's not motivating. But Michael Jordan punches somebody in the eye because, like...
LeBron just dismissed him. He's dismissing him. He says, you're all garbage. Get out of here. You're all garbage. We need new players. Michael never said that.
So that's not motivating. So that's not motivating. Maybe
he's trying to motivate your GM. He's trying to motivate the GM to go get better players. That won't work. That's not leadership. That's the opposite of leadership.
LeBron, whatever LeBron does is never good enough. Everything that Michael did was more than great. Stop that, Skip. See, here's the problem that I have. I'll give you a prime example. You know, we had this scandal going on with coaches and how they developing these, let's take gymnastics. Some of the greatest coaches, they produced from Nadia Comaneci and on down the line. And come to find out, they were bullying the girls. Now, we don't say now, oh, but they got them gold medal. They say that was bullying. That was wrong, what they did to them. Only Michael Jordan gets a pass because they won championship. We criticize every coach. Tom Marinovic's dad, we criticized him because he said what he did to his son got him to the league. We don't say he got him to the league. We say, no, that's unacceptable. Only Michael Jordan gets a pass for doing what he did. Skip, you can't do that. You can't say the ends justify the means.
You can't compare the way Jordan motivated the Chicago Bulls to gymnastic coaches who locked up and wouldn't let these girls eat so they would stay, prepubescent. It's not the same thing. That wasn't bullying. That was just illegal. Okay.
So Michael Jordan using his place of authority as being the best player in the NBA, has been the leader of the team to constantly ridicule, put down other players, fight them. That's not the same, because those are grown men who are in fear. Got to feed their family. Because if I strike it, I already know. If I put hands on Mike, I'm up out of here. So that's not the same. So Michael Jordan using his power, his position to bully is different. I thought bullying is bullying.
He didn't bully, he motivated. Shannon, there's a big difference in bullying and motivating. Motivating is leadership, and he was a great leader. He did Phil Jackson's job better than Phil did it.
No mercy. Well, talking about the 1996 finals, Gary Payton said when he started defending Jordan, it, quote, took a toll on Mike. While watching Payton make these comments on The Last Dance, MJ laughed out loud and then dismissed the idea that Payton had worn him down. I actually had to rewind and watch this again to make sure I was seeing it the right way. I could not believe it. Shannon, how disrespectful was this from Michael Jordan?
Well, it's not disrespectful. And plus, even if that was the case, Michael Jordan would never admit publicly that someone can D him up. Skip, this is the thing what great players do. They convince themselves that everything is in their control. Nobody can stop me. I play my game no matter who's on the other side. I'm going to get to my spot. I'm going to be able to do what I'm going to do. And that's what makes them so unbelievable, is that they've convinced themselves that everything that goes on in the court is within their power. And Michael Jordan was never going to say, Payton could D me up. No. Remember, Skip, what he said about Clyde Drexler. He's like, Clyde was a great player, but it was disrespectful for me to be compared to Clyde. That's how he thought. That's how the greats think. Larry Bird didn't think there was a man on the court. Magic didn't think there was a guy on the court. And that's what great players do, Skip. Now, Payton did do a good job, Skip. If you look at games 4, 5, and 6, Jordan averaged 23 points and shot 32% from the floor. So he did do a good job. That game on Father's Day, Mike was 5 of 19 for 22 points. When he first switched on him, he was 6 of 19 for 23 points. So he did do a good job, but it was too little too late. And I'm not so sure. And by estimates, they say that Sonics teams might have been the worst finals team up until that point, Skip, in NBA history. So they were overwhelming. The Bulls were overwhelming favorites to win that game, Skip. You know that, I know that.
The Sonics team I knew at that point went 64-18 and had easily the second best record in the whole NBA. So I thought they were really good. Gary Payton was the Defensive Player of the Year. Defensive Player of the Year, that's pretty good. And Sean Kemp and Detlef Schrempf and Sam Perkins and Nate McMillan coming off the bench could really D you up. George Karl was a really fine basketball coach. I have great respect for George Karl. And yet, even George Karl said last night on SportsCenter, it started when Jordan and Ahmad Rashad just happened to be at the same Chicago restaurant. I believe it was the night before Game 1 of the finals in Chicago.
It was.
And George Karl just decided, I got to ignore him. I'll say hello to him on the floor before Game 1, and then I'll congratulate him, however it turns out, after it's over. But I'm not going to go over and make small talk with him at his table. So he just walked right past. And Jordan's quote in the documentary was, that was a crock of you-know-what, and that's all I needed. So he came out on fire, and he goes 28, 29, and 36 then in the first 3 games, and it looked like it was going to be a sweep. George also said last night on SportsCenter he does regret that he didn't put Gary on Michael to start with. And yet, I know what would have happened. Gary was so full of himself that Gary would have D'd him up, and if Michael had shot 6 for 19 in Game 1 and somehow Seattle had pulled off a big upset win at Chicago, trust me on this, Gary would have talked some you-know-what during and after the game. And if he would have had hell to pay in Games 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I believe the Bulls would have won the next 4. But now back to Jenny's question. For me, I thought it was blatantly disrespectful the way Michael reacted. It was also, by far, my favorite classic MJ moment in the whole 8 episodes of the documentary, because he's watching Gary's answers on the computer that was handed to him, and he's watching, and his reaction was he truly got a kick out of it. It made him LOL. He threw his head back and laughed, and then he listened some more, and he laughed again. It tickled him that Gary would go so far as to say, I wore him out, I D'd him up. And it was blatant disrespect just to dismiss that claim from Gary Payton. And to your point, Shannon, he did do a really nice job in Game 4. He did an okay job in Game 5, but Michael was 11 of 22 for 26 points. Scotty was terrible in those 2 games, went 1 for 8 from 3 in both those 2 games. And then finally in Game 6, Michael was okay, 22, 9, and 7. Scotty came up much bigger in the closeout Game 6. But as Michael concluded on camera last night on the doc, he said, I had other things on my mind. Well, he was coming upon the first Father's Day in a finals without his father, James, who had been murdered, obviously, a couple of years before. And it was hitting him hard that he was trying to do this for the first time without James always there at his side. And it got him, and we got to see behind the scenes with audio, something that I'd only seen visually, and that was Michael on the floor in the locker room with that championship ball, just bawling his eyes out, just heaving emotion. And I'd never seen Michael like that, and I don't think he was crying crocodile tears for the cameras. I think it really and truly tore him up that his father, James, wasn't there to share that moment with him. So, again, he said he was a little shaky on the Father's Day closeout game, but afterwards he just lost it. And so, in the end, I don't think Gary would have made that much difference, but it would have been fun to watch if Gary had taken him in Game 1, and then we could have seen if a more competitive series would have unfolded.
Yes, Skip, I think the thing is that you look at the game, the first championship that he won in '91, and you look at this one, which was his 4th one, he cried, but the tears have different meanings. One is tears of joy, happiness, excitement, and the other one is disappointment that, yes, I did this, but the man that meant the world to me, my best friend, my father, the one that I could go to at any time, call at any moment, and he would be there for me, is not here. adulate, excited, extremely happy. But, Skip, those tears have different meanings in those situations. Skip, for me, and watching the documentary last night also, Skip, something bothered me is that, and I know what it bothered him too because he mentioned it. He's like, Skip, the tragedy that had befallen my family and what I'm going through, people would want to pin my gambling habits on that I played a role in my father's death. Skip, I can see now how that would bother someone, how that would make someone harden to the tune that, man, I ain't talking to y'all no more. And if it wasn't for the relationship that he had with David Stern, Skip, he probably would have told the media to kiss his butt, other than Ahmad Rashad, because that's his boy. Skip, he might have not done another interview had it not been for David Stern, because some of the things that they were, like I said, an accusation. And people sometimes take accusation as fact, as truth. And that bothered Mike. And like I said, hey, that probably drove him from the game more than anything. But, Skip, you're right. Had Gary Payton, GP, D'd up Jordan, Skip, that's what they all do. Skip, it's like you do realize this is not a Game 7. This was not a closeout game. All you're doing is pouring fuel on a barn fire. B.J. Armstrong celebrating, knowing Michael standing a few foot away from him, and you're celebrating like that. He's like, B.J. should have known better. So GP probably would have done that. Yeah, I locked him up. I mean, I'm Defensive Player of the Year. What do you expect? This is what I do. And Michael would probably went into that phone booth, put that cape on, and came out and dropped 50 on somebody the next two games, because that's how he is. He takes the slight because he looked at George Carr like, bro, we went to Carolina. You went to Carolina. I went to Carolina. Coach Smith. We played golf together. And now you going to pretend like you don't see me? Okay, don't worry about it. You might not see me, but you're going to feel me tomorrow.
No mercy.
In just 6 days, it's a day we've all been waiting for as NASCAR returns. Don't miss the historic green flag and the return of live racing as NASCAR is back Sunday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox. I cannot wait, guys. Okay, the overall narrative about Michael Jordan's baseball career was that it was a failure. He only batted .202 and returned to the NBA after just one season in Double-A. However, the team's play-by-play announcer and hitting coach both said they believed MJ would have made the majors if he would have continued playing because of his work ethic and immediate improvement. So, Shannon, how far could he have gone if he had stuck with baseball, in your opinion?
I always felt, Skip, he was coming back to basketball, so I don't believe he'd have been around long enough to make it up to the majors. Also, Skip, I just think 14 years is too much time for someone to be away from a sport to come back and then try to compete at the very highest levels. So for me, he started his career off, Skip, he had a 13-game hitting streak, and then he struggled with the breaking ball, with the off-speed pitches. If you look at his average in Double-A, Skip, 202, 3 home runs, 51 RBIs. He had 30 stolen bases, but he was caught 18 times. He had 114 strikeouts. And so when you look at it, I understand they said, oh, he had a promising career. It looked like he'd have been promising. 1,500 at bats. What are we looking at, Skip? What, 2, 3, 4 seasons down in the minors? He didn't have that kind of time. I always felt he was going back, Skip, to basketball. And so we never know. The thing is, Skip, if Michael Jordan, in baseball, you might have a 20-game, hitless streak. Michael Jordan is not going 20 games, Skip, and not scoring a basket. Michael Jordan, Michael Jordan, Skip, if you hit 3 out of 10, you're going to the Hall of Fame in baseball. Michael Jordan's not going anywhere through shooting 3 out of 10 in basketball, Skip. So how he's judged in being Michael Jordan, Skip, I just think only the best would have done for him. He would have needed to be Barry Bonds. He would have needed to be what we see at Mike Trout now in order for him to deem that a success. And so, Skip, I don't, I'm not the biggest baseball aficionado. I understand the rules and know all the history of the game, Skip. But I don't know if he'd have been able to stick around long enough to wait it out. At that point in time, Skip, he was, 31, 32 years of age? And to stick around another 3, 4 years, I don't see it happening, Skip, but that's just me.
Well, this is just me. I believe if he had stuck with it, because his father wanted him to play baseball from the start when he was growing up, I believe he would have made it to the big leagues. Would he have been a star? I doubt it. The problem was he's too tall and long. How many 6'6" sluggers did we see? Dave Kingman, if people remember Dave Winfield. It just didn't happen. Yeah, Dave Winfield. It's hard. Your swing is too long. And yet, for Michael Jordan to come out of pro basketball and step right into AA after not having played for 14 years since you were a junior in high school, and the only reason they had to throw him into the fire in AA was because the stadiums weren't big enough at Class A ball, or rookie league ball, to handle the media turnout that was going to turn out for the Birmingham Barons. So at least in Birmingham, the stadium was big enough that they could handle the media throng. But it's hard at AA because there are so many big league prospects that you're going to have to be hitting against. And it was miraculous that he started early on with a 13-game hitting streak, and then Terry Francona and the hitting coach and the play-by-play man for the Birmingham Barons, who is still there as the play-by-play man, all said that by August, early September, they were seeing signs of huge progress as he started to really get acclimated to hitting the breaking ball. And people don't remember, he went to the Arizona Fall League the next fall and hit 255 against even higher level of competition. So he was on an arc to make it to the big leagues. And in fact, the most damaging article written about him was by a friend of mine named Steve Wolf. I came up in the newspaper business with Steve Wolf, and he became a top writer at Sports Illustrated. And that spring training and early in that season, Steve followed Michael in Birmingham and wrote a cover story that had the cover headline of "Bag It, Michael, Jordan and the White Sox are embarrassing baseball." Steve Wolf went back that year in August and followed him for a while and decided, Steve said, he wrote this for ESPN.com yesterday, that he was wrong. And he wrote a mea culpa that when he presented it to his Sports Illustrated editors, they said, no, we can't run this. We don't love it. We don't want to admit that we were wrong. And they killed his mea culpa. So Steve now wrote his mea culpa for ESPN.com, these many years later. He's saying, yes, he believes he could have made it to the big leagues. Well, why did Michael go back to the Bulls? Well, baseball was in strike mode. Remember, they were going with replacement players, and Michael wanted no part of being a replacement player. So I don't know what would have happened, Shannon, if baseball had been business as usual with no strike. I don't know, but what he had been smitten enough that he would have stuck with it. Maybe it would have changed history in the NBA, but because of the strike, he finally said, heck with this, and he went back for 1 practice, 2, 3 practices with the Bulls and finally said, I'm going to do this again. And Terry Francona said one great thing about baseball is it relit his competitive fire for basketball. So I think it was an amazing thing that he did.
Skip, you talk about the article, the guy, what I've known over my career and playing sports and being in this side, the disrespect is always louder than the apology. Because as you said, Skip, it was front page, it was headline, it was the cover of Sports Illustrated. And then when he write it, now it's not, even though he wrote it for ESPN, it's not going to be the same as that headline. So the disrespect is always louder than the apology. And that's what we have to be mindful of. Skip, yeah, Michael is extremely competitive. That's why that's the problem that he ran in, Skip, with gambling. It's not good enough for him to just go play around the golf with some buddies and, bet $5, $10. No. $5, $10 leads to $5, $10,000, $20, $30, $50, $100,000. Next thing you know, he was down $1 million. But that's the way he plays. Everything is, that's the competition. Because nothing is like, and that's what guys, Skip, all athletes will tell you, there's nothing that will replace the competition of what you left. Be it baseball, basketball, football, soccer. How do I fill that competitive void? What can I do, Skip? People turn to gambling. Well, Mike had the money, so it was no problem for him. And so when he got to baseball, And then all of a sudden, because you remember now, he left basketball at the apex. And now all of a sudden he's traveling around. It's not a private jet. It's not a G4. He's not on a G5 Skip. He's on a bus, a Bluebird, one of those buses that we used to ride to school.
Yep.
So one of those, Skip. And so now he's like, hold on, wait a minute. I ain't Barry Bonds. I'm not, Skip, and you talk about tall sluggers. I think Mark McGuire's about 6'6". Aaron Judge is 6'8". So, but Skip, like I said, Skip, those guys had played baseball their whole life. They didn't play baseball, stop, go play something else. That'd be like Aaron Judge playing football and all of a sudden go back and try to pick up playing baseball.
I agree.
That's too far in between.
Look, Bo Jackson was obviously an all-star in baseball, but he was a college baseball star at Auburn. Yeah. And he had a little bit of minor league and went straight at age 23 to the big leagues in Kansas City. Right. Look at Deion Sanders. He played baseball and ran track at Florida State, a baseball power. Yes. So at age 20, he played a little minor league, and at 21, he's in the big leagues as a starting center fielder. And as you know, Yankees, Braves, Reds, he was a starting center fielder for even the Giants. Yeah. So, again, could Michael have reached that apex? Probably not. I don't think he was as gifted as Deion or certainly as Bo was at baseball. No. But in the end, what he accomplished in 1 year of AA and one Arizona Fall League was extraordinary, and I think he should be proud of what he did. Yeah, for Michael Jordan, for that guy to be that high, Skip, and willing to lower himself down like that. Because normally, Skip, once you become great at something, you don't like to try a whole lot of other things because you're not good at it. You like to be great at everything that you do. So all of a sudden, you're trying baseball, something you haven't done in 14 years, and you're like, man, I'm Michael Jordan. And I'm sucking. I'm like the guys Skip, that was on my team. I'm them here now. And the other guys are Michael Jordan, so to speak. So I'll commend him for that, Skip. For you to be the highest of the highs and willing to subject yourself to start from scratch again, not the kid.
No mercy. While discussing The Last Dance, Hall of Famer Kevin McHale said one of his biggest takeaways from the documentary was that the Bulls, quote, complained all the time, specifically when they faced the Pistons in the late 80s and early 90s. So, Shannon, do you agree?
Oh, now there's somebody that ain't throwing bouquet of flowers at old Mike Jordan. Yeah, they complain. Yes. And Kevin McHale said we loved it. That physical style of play never bothered us. As a matter of fact, we welcomed it. Somebody else, all they talked about, they beat us. That's not good for basketball. Skip Bayless, let me tell you something. And I want the people to hear this, and I'm going to be done with this. Isaiah Thomas and Michael Jordan are the exact same person. They would have done anything to win at all costs. The only difference is Michael Jordan is more liked. Simple as that. Go ahead, Skip, take it away.
That was the wrongest thing you said in the history of Undisputed. Now back to Kevin McHale. He can talk big when he got to ride shotgun for Larry Bird and Robert Parrish and Dennis Johnson and Danny Ainge and play against Baby Jordan flying solo. So they can talk big. The Pistons were playing football. The rules allowed them to rough up Jordan and keep him on the ground because when he took flight, as John Sally said, I'm sorry, he was not human. That's what John Sally said. So stop it, Kevin McHale. You're just jealous.
Hold on. Did you not see McHale snatch Kurt Rambis' butt out the sky? Did you not see how they used to play and how the Celtics and Lakers used to go at it in the 80s? This is not new. Everybody played like that. The bad boy Pistons, they won. The Knicks played like that. Skip, you know they had Oakley, Mason, Xavier McDaniel, Charles Smith, Patrick Ewing, Stark. That's the way they played. Indiana played like that. Everybody played like that. Don't just blame it on Isaiah, but Isaiah spanked that tail. That one got him. Kevin McHale spanked that tail.
Okay, guys, wound up. That's all the time we have today on Undisputed. I love Mondays around here. We'll be back same time tomorrow morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. Have a good day, guys.